Declassified CIA documents claim Carl Jung accused the U.S. Air Force of covering up truth about UFOs. Now, in the past few videos, you'll be able to see what we've had concerning recent UFO sightings in our current age, but also talking about ancient Greece, Hyperborea, which was actually some kind of a stargate, and UFOs coming in and out of our Earth and solar system interplanetary spaceships. This is one of the Greek vases showing a UFO, someone sitting, which was obviously the body bigger than humans, sitting on a chariot. They used to call them crafts. The same word for airship or ocean ship is scaphos, meaning craft. And we have various lightning rod of Zeus weapons, alien technology coming from Hyperborean Atlanteans that were living without getting sick, having longevity, just like the Sumerian kings from the Sumerian king lists that used to live tens of thousands of years. The Olympian gods were actually aliens from other areas of our galaxy or other galaxies. And you'll find those videos just before this one. Now, what does Carl Jung have to say about these UFOs? Now, this thing here is a copy of something that Alexander the Great had. He called it the lightning rod of Zeus. This one here was what is to be found in one of the Nepal Buddhist monasteries. And the actual weapon is actually buried somewhere at the Pacific coast of China, facing the Pacific Ocean towards Japan. The generals of Alexander the Great buried it there so that it would not be found. We also know that there was a document buried here in Delphi in Greece, a document between extraterrestrials and earthlings that was not to be found by the Persians who were attacking ancient Greece at that time. We know that Alexander the Great put an end to the Persian Empire, and that document was not to be found by the Persians, otherwise they would have been able to take over the whole world, and that was not the divine plan. And again, this is a copy of the lightning rod of Zeus that was given by a Hyperborean ancient alien from the Arctic, I guess that's where their Stargate was, to be used by Alexander the Great. Now, let's see what Carl Jung had to say about the UFOs. Please support my Patreon channel since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. My Patreon channel will have 5 different videos from my YouTube channel every day. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. What happened? Roscoe Hillenkotter, the very first director of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, once said that it's time for the truth to be brought out. Behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officials are soberly concerned about UFOs, but through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying objects are nonsense. I urge immediate congressional action to reduce the dangers from secrecy about unidentified flying objects. He said this decades ago. Hillenkotter is also mentioned in this declassified document archived and released by the CIA recently. This particular document also mentions Carl Jung, and it reads as follows. This is a reply to the letter, August 6, criticizing Dr. Carl Jung for his belief in flying saucers and his charges that the Air Force has been covering up the truth about these objects. I would like to point out that Dr. Jung is not the first person of integrity and reputation who has made such charges. He is merely the latest. Exactly the same charge has been made by Admiral Delmar Farney, former director of the Naval Guided Missile Research Program, and by R.M. Hillenkotter, former chief of the Central Intelligence Agency. Both of these men would be in a position to know how much of the Air Force investigation of saucers really found. This piece was written by Fred A. Kirsch, a well-known UFO researcher. So what did they really find? Keep in mind this document is from 1959 and it's now 2021. How much has been discovered and how much has been kept from the public? In his very last interview before his death, Colonel Robert Friend, who from 1958 to 1962 was the director of Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book was U.S. Air Force UFO investigation program, suggests that U.S. Air Force did know what these objects were. Fast forward to today, and we now have, quote, abundant evidence that we are being contacted, that civilizations have been visiting us for a very long time, end quote. This is what Dr. Brian O'Leary, former NASA astronaut and Princeton physics professor, said. Now, in my comment here is, let's know that, keep in mind that a lot of ufologists and archaeologists believe that a lot of these flying saucers could be the remnants of what is still around us from the Atlanteans. This is also what, and you'll find my playlist on the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean, who built the Giza pyramids, and he says he hid his spacecraft under a sphinx there. There may be other sphinx besides the one that we know. He says that the Atlanteans are around. They were the ones that built pyramid cities and ancient cities after Atlantis sunk, and they were misusing their advanced technology, and they knew that they were doing wrong because they were told not to misuse their technology. They even had interdimensional travel, and they were bringing in demonic entities into this realm of humanity, which they were not supposed to do. So, Thoth the Atlantean, who wrote these things thousands of years ago, these Emerald Tablets, says that yes, the Atlanteans are still around and they still have these spaceships. And a lot of archaeologists believe that these could be the remnants of Atlanteans who are still around but trying to sort of be incognito. Now, anyway, concerning this document, the document goes on to say, if Jung were the only responsible person to make such charges, we could brush the whole thing off as nonsense. However, when a number of pilots, radar operators, and other trained observers agree that the UFOs are real, a serious reprisal of the situation is in order. Of course, it's also a matter of national defense, isn't it? And the article goes on to say, today UFOs have gone mainstream and the same information is being emphasized. For example, Christopher Mellon, who was the former Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary for Intelligence from 1997 to 2002, recently made an appearance on CNN stating the same facts about these objects. Many people have concerns about, quote, mainstream UFO disclosure, end quote, given the fact that governments and mainstream media, according to many, have deceived the public on so many occasions. And you can read the deeper discussion about that here if interested. He's got the link here. Now, the same year that this document pertaining to Jung was written, he released his book called Flying Saucers, A Modern Myth of Things Seen in the Skies, which examines, quote, not the reality or unreality, end quote, of the titular phenomena, but their psychic aspect and what it might signify that these phenomena, whether real or imagined, are seen in such numbers just at a time, called the Cold War, when humankind is menaced as never before in history. It seems, in my opinion, he was quite convinced of the phenomenon, especially given the fact that he's accused the Air Force of a cover-up. Again, fast forward to today, and we now know he was right. In 1957, New Republic editor Gilbert A. Harrison went to get Jung's perspective on UFOs in his magazine. And you can see via the AUL, A-U-L, a scan of Jung's response to Harrison's query, and the text reads as follows, quote, the problem of the UFOs is, as you rightly say, a very fascinating one, but it is as puzzling as it is fascinating, since in spite of all observations I know of, there is no certainty about their very nature. On the other side, there is an overwhelming material pointing to the legendary or mythological aspect. As a matter of fact, the psychological aspect is so impressive that one almost must regret that the UFOs seem to be real after all. I have followed up the literature as much as possible, and it looks to me as if something were seen and even confirmed by radar, but nobody knows exactly what is seen. In consideration of the psychological aspect of the phenomenon, I have written a booklet about it, which is soon to appear. It's also in the process of being translated into English. Unfortunately, being occupied with other tasks, I am unable to meet your proposition. Being rather old, I have to economize my energies, end quote. Jung's approach to UFOs was clearly binary. It would seem, especially given the claims in the CIA document, that he believes them to be real, but was uncertain of their very nature and what they exactly represented. At the time, academics were well aware of the UFO phenomenon. Many decades ago, Werner von Braun's mentor, Hermann Oberth, the founding father of rocketry and astronomics, German of course, also known as the father of spaceflight, stated his belief that, quote, flying saucers are real, end quote, and that, quote, they are spaceships from another solar system. I think that they possibly are manned by intelligence observers who are members of a race that may have been investigating our Earth for centuries, end quote. This is what he wrote, and these words saying, in flying saucers come from a distant world, the American Weekly, October 24th, 1954. It's hard to believe that for all these years, despite the fact that evidence clearly suggested otherwise, that UFO were thrown into the conspiracy theory bucket, and one was made out to be a lunatic for even mentioning the possibility that they were real and possibly extraterrestrial. Today, it's a much different story, but there is still a lot to uncover. The takeaway. We have written about the UFO phenomenon in depth for a long time now. We've covered countless stories and revelations regarding the phenomenon. If you'd like to sift through our UFO extraterrestrial articles, from most and recent to last, learn more about the phenomenon, you could do it here. There's a link here. I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again, that the UFO topic leaves no aspect of humanity untouched. It's truly a catalyst, as are many other things, to expand human consciousness and really ask deeper questions about the nature of our reality and what we think we know about it. Ultimately, I believe the phenomenon will force us to ask more questions about ourselves, where we come from, why we're here, and most importantly, why we live and act the way we do here on planet Earth. This article, Declassified CIA document claims Carl Jung accused U.S. Air Force of covering up the truth about UFOs, was originally created for Collective Evolution and is published here under Creative Commons. It's on Collective Spark by Steve McCamley. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support, especially all of you who are kind enough and generous to support my Patreon channel, where I have health, recent latest political news and things like that, which are totally censored on YouTube, as we know. Thank you for your support.